Episode 337, Back in Action. Alex, Debbie, and Callisto went to the gate of the Moon Palace, followed by hundreds of disciples who were determined to see them off. "Well, let's get going," Alex said, waving to the disciples. He took one last look at the palace and grinned at Celeste, Celine, and Luna, and then he turned around and left with Debbie. Callisto and Rocky followed behind them. Celeste, Celine, and Luna wept, and the other disciples also cried as they called out to Alex. "Goodbye, Lord," exclaimed Celeste. "Have a safe journey," wished Celine. "Come back as soon as you can," yelled Luna. Their voices echoed through the Appalachian Mountains. Alex and Debbie rode donkeys down the mountain. It was more than an hour's walk to the road. Alex, Callisto, and Rocky could easily walk that far, but Debbie couldn't, so they had chosen to take donkeys. They plodded steadily on, and after an hour, they reached the side of the road, and Alex helped Debbie off her donkey. "Good donkey," Callisto said. "Go home now." The donkeys had been raised in the Moon Palace and would have no trouble going back by themselves. "Here's the car I arranged for you," Rocky said, pointing to a car that was parked at the side of the road. "Thank you, Rocky," Alex said. They all got in and drove rapidly down the mountain. They passed by the spot where Chris Stedman had previously stationed some men, but they were gone now. Just the day before, Chris had asked the men to return to Baltimore. It had been a month, and there had been no sign of Alex coming down the mountain, so Chris had assumed Alex was dead, and he had given up looking for him. Alex finally arrived at the airport and bid farewell to Rocky. Then he, Debbie, and Callisto boarded a flight to Baltimore. Silver Lake was a famous tourist attraction in Baltimore, but many tourists arriving on this day were going to be disappointed. The police were out in force, blocking off access to the lake. Many tourists grumbled, unhappy that they couldn't enjoy the sights. "You'll all have to leave," Officer Chelsea Woods said to the crowds. "The lake is closed to visitors today. Thank you for your understanding." The Baltimore police were currently responsible for maintaining order outside the Silver Lake area. They were aware of the meeting between Lee Harshaw and the martial arts community, but they couldn't intervene. All they could do was attempt to protect the public from whatever was about to happen. People from the martial arts community began to arrive, and Chelsea had to check their identities. Only people whose names were on her list were allowed to enter. Chelsea was careful to be respectful to these visitors. "Please go in," she said to Brody Kent of the Sunrise Sect. She knew this meeting was important for the survival of the martial arts community, and she was interested in what was going on. She hated Lee Harshaw for killing 4 of the martial arts leaders in Baltimore, and she wanted to see how the community would dispose of him. When the tourists saw so many people from the martial arts community arriving, they realized that something big must be going on in Silver Lake today, so they were happy to stay away. An expensive car drove up, with Julian Devant behind the wheel. After more than a month of treatment, his legs had healed fairly well. But as the doctor had predicted, Julian had been left with a limp. Chris Stedman sat in the passenger seat. His father couldn't be seen here, so Chris had come in his place so that he could keep his father informed. Melissa stepped out of the crowd to follow Chris. She was wearing a black coat and her face was drawn. She looked around at all the police officers and everyone from the martial arts world. She knew the Blood Brothers were going to fight with the martial arts community, and she thought it was because she had killed Alex. Melissa felt uneasy. but she wanted to sneak inside and look around, even though she wasn't keen to see what happened. It was her fault that more innocent people would die. She lowered her head and walked toward the lake. "Hey you," called a police officer. "The lake is closed today. Please leave." Melissa was about to turn around when one of the martial artists got into an argument with several police officers. When the officer in front of Melissa hurried off to help, Melissa took the opportunity to slip inside. Many seats had been arranged on the banks of the Silver Lake, and several martial artists were already lounging around on them. People continued to arrive all the time. On the other side of the lake was a small building, and Lee was sitting within it, his eyes closed as he mentally prepared himself. Blood-spattered robes were piled on top of a wooden table. Chris and Julian entered the building through the back door, afraid that the martial arts community might see them. Julian was limping, but he had come to terms with this new part of his life. When they saw the blood-stained robes, they grew nervous, recognizing them as belonging to Zachariah Holbrook and several other leaders. "Hello, Mr. Harshaw," Chris said. "Hello, Mr. Harshaw," Julian echoed him. Lee slowly opened his eyes, saw Chris and Julian, and nodded. "Today, everyone from the martial arts community will be here," Chris said. "There are so many of them already sitting by the lake, and more people are coming. You will soon have your revenge." Lee thought of his dead apprentice and sighed. "I still wish I could have been the one to kill Alex," he said, clenching his fists. From outside the building, the martial artists began to call out. "Blood Brothers, come out and face us!" came a cry. "Are you too scared to come out?" challenged one. "I promise I won't kill you," yelled another. Lee's expression grew angry, and his muscles contracted as he tried to control his rage. Chris and Julian trembled with fear. "Mr. Harshaw, we should go," Chris said, standing up. "We'll be cheering for you from the crowd. My father and I wish you success against the martial arts community." "Yes, we wish you success," Julian repeated. He was too scared to even look at Lee as he limped out of the room with Chris.